both now and ever, and unto ages of ages. Amen.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's so good to be with you after about 2 years of absence. I didn't want to come anymore to St. Nicholas. I was upset with St. Nicholas for 2 years. That's why I didn't come. No, I'm just kidding. It's COVID. It's COVID. And thank God we are resuming visitations with minor exceptions. We started last May, and then we stopped in August because Delta had increased until the end of September, and then end of September we started again, and we slowed down a little bit after Christmas because I had COVID, and now we're ramping up again. God willing, there will be no more stopping. I remember about 4 years ago, I was sitting right here, and I was talking about a brand new organization, and we said it's going to be called Amen, Antiochian Men. And we started talking about it, and all of a sudden I hear somebody from over there. He was sitting over here. I'm pumped. And I said, okay, are you going to run for president then? And he said, yes. So that was Michael. And the PLC after that, he became the president. And actually Bryce also was very excited, and he became an officer of Amen. Actually, the roots of Amen go back to 15 years ago. When I was a priest, I started the first chapter in my parish in Fort Lauderdale, and we called it Amen. And then when I became a bishop and moved to Englewood, New Jersey, we started another chapter in Little Falls, not Little Rock, Little Falls, and it's still going on very strong. They still meet every other Friday. They don't allow women in their meetings. And I told them, no, you need to allow women. At least every once in a while, invite them. So they have it every other Friday, and they have projects to help the church and so on. So now, 4 years ago, we started Amen at the diocese level. And it has been going great. Thanks to Michael's effort, Bryce's effort, and everybody on the board, and the use of media that got us all going in all of our parishes here at Domsey. By the way, if you haven't heard of Domsey, is our Diocese of Miami and Southeast. I said we're going to start a healthy competition between the Antiochian men and the Antiochian women. So whenever I meet with the Antiochian women, I tell them, hey, look, the men are organizing, you better watch out. They're coming, they're going to catch up with you. And I say the same thing to the men, so that we have a healthy competition for the service of God, for the diocese, to serve God. And thank God we are well on our way. We're not at our goal yet, but we're going there. And the goal of Amen, as I said at the beginning, is for all men to become God-like, which is the purpose of orthodoxy. Sometimes I joke about it and I say, I invented this goal. Nobody has done this before. The fact is, this is the goal of orthodoxy for the past 2,000 years. But we just need to make it the top goal. Without that, we can really flounder and not know where we're going. And to become godlike is to acquire the virtues. As you all know, in the book of Genesis, God said, let us create man in our image. And he doesn't mean just man, he means mankind. And according to Microsoft, if you type mankind in Word, it corrects it for you. It says it becomes humankind. But it is mankind too. He gave us his image, which is a gift to us. We didn't do anything to deserve it, right? He just gave it to us as a gift. And in response to that, we need to become like him. And to become like him is to acquire those virtues that almost don't exist in the world outside. They almost don't exist. And they are diminishing by the hour, worse and worse. So to put that as a goal, the top goal of Amen, which is really the top goal of every Orthodox Christian, man, woman, or child, is paramount. And we need to remind ourselves of that, because the world is going to try to get us to forget it. To tell you the truth, it's difficult. It's not easy. And most of us will not get there. But the journey counts. The struggle to get there counts, even though most of us might not get there. Sometimes we might suffer because of our belief, because of trying to become godlike. So struggling and suffering are part of orthodoxy, part of what we do to get there. We have come a long, long way in those 4 years. If you check out, I'm assuming everybody is on band. There are several groups on band. There's the Antiochian Men, the Reading Corner, the Diocese group. We have a website, antiochianmen.org. We have diocese.org. We have YouTube channels. We have Instagram, Facebook. All of that did not exist 4 years ago. So we have come a long, long way. But all of these are only tools. They're not the goal. They're tools so that we can reach every single person in the diocese. We can't leave any person behind. And that has been happening gradually as the attendance of all the events we have in Diocese keep increasing. As you may know, last fall in October, we had the fall retreat. We had 247 people in person. So we're getting there. Many of these people attended for the first time. Then now, at the end of January, we were going to have the clergy retreat and winter retreat, and because of Omicron, we rescheduled them to the end of February. We're hoping to break that record as well. Our PLCs are breaking records every single year. So we're reaching people more and more, which is important. Sometimes you have to repeat the message 1,000,000 times for some people to get it, which is fine. I'm not complaining, which is fine, as long as we reach everyone. All of these events are spiritual events. They're not business meetings. We can do business meetings on Zoom. In the winter retreat, we have an hour of business meeting over the entire weekend. Every organization has 1 hour of business meeting. But the rest of the retreat is spiritual. Services in the morning and in the evening. So the focus is God. And we want to keep the focus there. There are forces that want us to defocus, want us to disband. But we're not going to allow that to happen. I'd like to hear from you how you're experiencing Amen. You can raise your hand and I'll call on you and you can share something with us. I see you have something to share?
Actually, it's
Thank
my
you.
first time coming to Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So far, so good.
Great. Great. We're going to keep raising the bar. And the sky the limit. Can you tell me your name?
Derek.
Derek.
Yeah, my wife and I have been coming for about close to 8 months now. We're still catechumens coming in, but Amen's been a great kind of outlet for discussion and fellowship and kind of forming that bond of understanding, of realizing you're not exactly alone when it comes down to facing the challenges of the world. And especially for me, it's been helpful to see that kind of like leadership from people who are well established and on that right path, you know. So it's been a blessing. It's been a good thing to do.
Excellent. Actually, I'd like to comment on what you said. The more we seclude ourselves, the more we plunge into an abyss. If we reach out and talk to someone when we're having a problem, or when we feel alone, or when we feel lonely, the easier it becomes, and the sooner it gets alleviated. So that's right, you are not alone. None of us is alone. That's one of the goals of Amen. The lower goals. The top goal is becoming God-like, and to establish that, we have to have fellowship. We have to connect with each other. Absolutely. David.
I have to say that the existence of the Amen group is exceptional. It's unfortunate that it's exceptional. Having been Orthodox since the 1980s, this is more or less unheard of and very much needed, especially because a lot of our communities are far-flung. You know, people are coming from all over different locations, and it's not natural to have the community built in, so to speak. So we have to make those efforts to build it. And you know, my experience of Amen is mainly, you know, through those relationships with the other men here in the parish. And I have to say that moving here would not have been possible without the welcome that we received even before we had moved. And the most amazing thing that they did was when we spent a day and a half loading our moving van, and the guys had everything out of the moving van and into the house in about 30 minutes. And, you know, 12, 15 people show up. I mean, it really makes a statement. So we're very grateful.
Absolutely, absolutely. The first comment you made was that this is very much needed. For the past, how long has Orthodoxy been here? 100, 125 years. At the beginning, nothing was organized, which is understandable. It starts with doing certain things in order to get organized. But I think in the 70s, the Antiochian women started to get organized. So now it's been 50 years, and they have been organized, they have been productive, they have been working very well together, but the men have been neglected. This is almost 50% of the church completely unorganized. Now, God willing, that is being organized, and it will continue to bear fruit as it has for the past 4 years. That's why I think healthy competition with the Antiochian women is crucial. Competition is good.
Bishop Nicholas, as I look around the room, and the thing that drew me to the organization as an older adult and looking at these young men, most of them single, inquiring, yet when I was at their age, uninterested. I think the family structure that was torn down between the 70s and current is being built back up in this room with what you have started here. We hopefully, the ones with the experience, cradle Orthodox, can pass on that, you know, my grandfather, father, and my mother, you know, with a good family background, can show these men what life with God in the Orthodox is our life, what it is. And this is truly a blessing. I just cannot believe this.
Absolutely. Glory be to God. And God willing, it will continue to grow. And hopefully soon, I don't know how soon it is, but soon you will make this building as your fellowship hall and build something bigger to have all of these people and account for future growth. So we can never rest. We have to continue growing constantly. As you may or may not know, we are a minority. We're not even 5% of this country, right? I don't think that we are 5%, maybe counting all jurisdictions, maybe 1%, 2%. So the work is phenomenal amount of work that we need to continue. That's why we cannot rest. And as you also know, idleness is the the playground of the devil. Once we become idle, then we decay. I travel about 50 weekends a year. I'm always on the plane, going from one place to another. And whenever I go to an area, I visit all the churches in that area. On Monday, I'm going to Little Rock to visit the church there. Next week, I'll be in Tampa, Florida, visiting 2 churches. So I'm not stopping, so that we continue. I'm going to keep driving this and raising the bar always. You know, one of my spiritual children said to me, last month you were satisfied with this, now you're not. What's going on? You keep raising the bar. I said, well, that's the name of the game. The more you improve, the more I'm going to raise the bar. He said, oh, that's not fair. I said, it is very fair. So we need to do that to ourselves too, not just to each other. Actually, one of the rules of true orthodoxy is that we are harder on ourselves than we are on others. We raise the bar for ourselves first before we raise it on others. So, any other comments?
Please.
Go ahead.
So, unfortunately, with the pandemic kind of interfering with things, it has taken a little bit, made it a little more difficult with the group. But what I've really enjoyed, again, being a Greek Orthodox from birth, we didn't have any organizations like this growing up. But I can see the potential. Obviously, on the basic level, is it allows us to connect and build local community and connections with our fellow parishioners. But as I see the potential moving forward, there's every church has needs, physical needs for the grounds or the structure that a lot of it doesn't necessarily require high skill, but needs a lot of manpower. And I can see as things start to clear here that, you know, we as a group can apply ourselves together and get a job done that would normally be quite the burden for 1 or 2 or 3 people. But if we band together, and if it requires some skill, we've got a pretty diverse group. Somebody probably knows something and can share that knowledge base with the rest of us, and we can get work done. And I kind of wonder what it would look like if we did that as an Amen group across the entire diocese, where if there's a church that has an overwhelming issue that needs a lot of manpower, if that becomes kind of like a weekend job where Amen volunteers from other parishes go and get that job done together, and that could kind of build not just a local parish community amongst the men, but it'll bind us together with our brothers in other parishes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we need to be aware of the other parishes in our diocese. That's why Michael and Bryce have been traveling to all the parishes and interviewing people on those parishes and making videos and so on, and they are on the internet, on the YouTube channel. Another way to do it, I don't know if you have heard of the new newsletter, the monthly newsletter called The Light. We've been sending it on a monthly basis since October. Every month, every first of the month, there is a new edition that features one of the churches in the diocese and the clergy of that church and what they do. 4 or 5 years ago, every church was isolated in this diocese. They didn't know, the clergy didn't know each other. The people didn't know each other. By having the winter retreat, the fall retreat, all the Lenten retreats, all the events in the diocese, we're starting to change. We're starting to know each other. And we keep adding new means of communication just so that we know each other. The first step is to know each other. If I've never met you and you've never met me before, it's more difficult to talk. We have to take that first step to get to know each other. And then it becomes easier to communicate. And the next step is what you said, is to start helping other churches. Actually, we have started doing that. When the hurricane hit New Orleans and the parish was paralyzed, we had communications going everywhere. And I was talking to the parish in Pensacola, Florida, which is pretty close to New Orleans. They loaded up a truck full of generators and supplies, and they drove all the way to New Orleans to help New Orleans. We have sent from the diocese money to the parish over there, close to $10,000, so that helps them rebuild. We're trying to connect with everybody. Over the past year or so, we raised money from parishioners. We called it the Pandemic Relief Fund. We just sent them some money. Sent actually 3 churches money from the Pandemic Relief Fund. So this way we can connect with each other. And it is the first step. Without connecting, nothing's going to happen. So let's count what we have. We have Downsea.org, we have AntiochianMen.org, we have 3 groups in band, we have Instagram, Facebook, the newsletter, YouTube's, the broadcast. We had, when we were locked down, we had a weekly live streaming every Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. your time. I connected with the parishioners of this diocese on band. For over a year, we kept that going. Until things loosened up, then there was no need for it. On a weekly basis. At the beginning, it started with words of encouragement because everybody was so depressed. To let them know that we are all together working on this. And then we started to add a little bit to it, some light level of explanation of the gospel of that Sunday. And all of those sessions are on YouTube. Michael edited those, added to them and some graphics and some chanting at the beginning and at the end and so on, and put them on the YouTube channel. So we have no excuse because we have all the means of communication in the diocese. And I am a proponent of technology. As you may or may not know, I am a computer engineer. I worked as a computer engineer for 20 years. So I am a proponent of the right use of technology. There is a wrong use of technology. It's all over the internet. So, and we're going to keep going. Nothing is going to stop us. We're going to keep going. As long as it is God's will to continue, we will continue.
So just you opened your past there for just a second. I've read a little bit of your bio, but I think the men here would certainly be interested in your history. Not to derail your conversation, but just as men looking at other men and history. Would you tell us a little bit about where you were born, your Orthodox history, any experiences you have with manhood in your Orthodox experience, any of that?
Sure. It all started about 20 years ago. I'm 21. Not true? Okay, it's not true.
Why'd they laugh so soon?
I don't know. Jeez, they don't believe I'm 21.
We're used to his jokes.
Well, I was born in Syria about 59 years ago. And I lived in Syria for 18 years. I finished high school there. And I immigrated to the US in 1981. It's probably longer than many of you have been alive. So it's been, by the end of February this year, it'll be 41 years. I came to the US. I did not speak any English, zero English. Last day of February 1981. And by September, I had to start engineering school. So I had 6 months to learn English and to work, to save up for college. And to learn the culture. It's a totally different culture. I'll give you an example. If you sit like this in Syria, that's disrespecting him, and he has the right to come and beat me up. Here in America, it's nothing, right? So you had to adjust. I had to adjust. I had to learn the culture, which was more difficult than learning the language, and it takes longer. So anyway, by September 1981, I started college at Northeastern University in Boston, and finished in '85. And I did the cooperative education, which means that you study for 6 months and you go out and work applying what you studied for 3 months. And then you come back to school for 3 months and then you go out and work for 6 months. When I came, they gave me credit for the first 2 years of college because of high school in Syria. High school in Syria is very high level. They took the French system and beefed it up. We had school for 6 days a week, not 5, every week. So I started the 3rd year of college, and that's why I was able to finish so quickly and do the cooperative education. And then I got my first professional job and continued my master's degree at night school, and then postgraduate degree after the master's degree, and so on, until God decided that this is not for me. I worked as an engineer for about 20 years. And 1990 to 2002, it was a bit of a struggle to find direction, because God had asked me, and I refused to heed his call for about 12 years to leave engineering. And after about 12 years, I left. 12 years, I left engineering and I went to Holy Cross in Brookline, Massachusetts, to get my Master's of Divinity. And then I got assigned to a parish in Fort Lauderdale, and I was there for 6 years in that parish, 6.5 years. And then in 2011, I was elected to be a bishop and consecrated, and I moved to headquarters in Englewood, New Jersey. I stayed there for about 6 years, and then I came down to Dempsey about 4 years ago. So I was a computer engineer for about 20 years. I worked for several companies. One of them is now a $55 billion company. It's electronic design automation, so all your phones, your computers, your electronic gadgets, 45% of all electronics in the world are designed using the tools of this company. Without those tools, there's another competitor. So that company and its competitor own 80% of hardware design in the world. Without these two companies, you can't design anything in hardware because it's so microscopical and you cannot see it. It's designed and built and so on, all inside the computer before you go to a fab house, a fabrication house. That's why it's a $55 billion, $54 billion company today. And it's going to keep growing because the designs are not becoming easier or simpler. They're becoming more difficult and more microscopical. It is headquartered in California, that company, in Mountain View. Is that close to you? That's not close to you. Somewhere up north, maybe, close to San Francisco. This is a synopsis of my background. Is that enough or more? No.
I want to know what your experience was like in, you grew up Orthodox, correct?
Yes, I'm a cradle Orthodox.
And I would like to know what your experience was like when you were a boy with Orthodox men and as a young man with Orthodox men, and was there obviously wasn't necessarily an amen group, but what was it like and how is it different to grow up Orthodox amongst Orthodox men and maybe how that might apply here? I'm just interested in the contrast.
Well, as you may or may not know, Syria is an Islamic country. And on Sundays, I had to go to school, no church. In the winter, we had to go to school. There is no church on Sundays. Only in the summer we went to church because Friday was the day off, not Sunday. So it was much more difficult over there to be Orthodox than it is here. Here, almost everybody has Sundays off. You go to church, you fellowship. It wasn't that easy back then. So not being able to go to church marginalized really Orthodoxy. And it did not become a major force in my life until I came here. Yeah. Until I came here. There isn't much more to say about that. But of course, at my home, it was taught. We always had, our house in Damascus was about 2 miles away from the Patriarchate. And we were connected with the clergy over there. Patriarch Ignatius of blessed memory used to be at our house frequently. He came for dinner with multiple metropolitans frequently. So we were connected with the church at all times.
I know Syria is like Islamic, but are there a lot of Christians living there?
Well, up until 10 years ago, Christianity was about 10% in Syria, which is very, very high compared to other countries other than Lebanon. But now, most of the Christians have left. You know, a Christian is not going to pick up a rifle and fight. A Christian is going to say, okay, this is not for me, I'm going to leave. As a result of that, they're struggling over there. In addition to the tough economic situation over there, it's very difficult to survive right now over there.
Your Grace. My name is Mark. I was chrismated last Pentecost. And my question is, was there men in your life growing up that were a big influence on you or blessing to you? And if so, what was it about them that helped you as a young man?
See, of course, my father, my uncles, and the church. Seeing the patriarch, the top dog of the church coming to our house with multiple metropolitans is very, very effective. And the topic of Christianity or Orthodoxy was always there. There was no influence of social media. There was no social media. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. So the negative influence was minimal. Besides, we went to school 6 days a week. We came home. There is barely enough time to do homework and then go to sleep and the next day repeat. So there was no chance of diverting away from God. Now the challenge is much, much bigger. And that's why we need to organize. It was unheard of back then for a husband and wife to have a divorce. What? They're getting divorced? Are you kidding? This is such a shame. But nowadays, it's prevalent. So the values back then were very, very different. Our society has become very different. That's why we need to organize even more. And you had never heard of kids going astray back then. It's extremely rare because the influence of social media and all of the negative influences of the internet and so on did not exist. And the internet started to exist at a public place in the early 90s. It's only 30 years ago. Before that, it was only with the Department of Defense. So the negative effects did not take place.
Sayed, in that meeting you talked about when you were here a few years ago, I remember you said that there's a problem that's unprecedented in the history of the church, and that's because of technology. Mm-hmm. And you said earlier that you believe in the good use of it.
Absolutely.
Obviously, what you've been describing it's really affecting everyone.
It is.
And it's hitting men very hard, and we're trying to fight against that.
Exactly.
But as far as being a problem that's unprecedented in the church, I think Antioch Men has been a good response to bring us back together, because we feel more isolated now, ironically, because of technology that promised us to be more connected. But about that challenge, I was hoping you could talk more about, as we as men are in the world and having to use technology, that temptation is always in front of us. And maybe your advice of how to, I don't know about block it out, but become more disciplined when we have to use it, right?
Yeah, well, technology is here to stay. It's not going to go away, right?
Yeah.
I was told by a teen, what? You grew up, there was no Wi-Fi? No internet? How did you live? Yeah. So it has the positive effect if we use it, and it has a negative effect. We want to avoid the negative effect. It's the stress that it causes. 3-4 years ago, I had to create a Facebook account because we were going to do some Facebook Live, and I had never logged into it again. But every day I get friend requests, 150 friend requests, people I've never met before. And some of them are shady characters. You can tell by the picture of the request what they're wearing and what they're. I mean, if I responded to those requests, they're going to take me away. The current is going to take me away with them. So we have to persist in that. We can't let society affect us in a negative way. I mean, it's bound to affect us a little bit, but we have to resist it as much as possible. And that's why we're organizing again. We cannot allow this to happen. Otherwise, we're going to be taken away by the mighty currents of negative technology. We can choose to use it the positive way. And more, there is more technology to block the bad technology, like parental control. That's becoming more prevalent in every technology. So, Philip.
My wife and I have been attending St. Nicholas for a little over 2 years, and have both been part of previous parishes, so it feels so lucky to be a part of St. Nicholas. For St. Nicholas to have had a priest that served for 20 years, and now to be blessed with Father Paul being our parish for the long-term future. Having grown, despite COVID, our attendance grew 32% last year, despite COVID, which to some of us will be recognized as unprecedented growth, particularly in the Orthodox Church, as we shared, we're such a small percentage. So many of our parish now are inquirers or newly Orthodox. Could you share a little bit about the growth that you've seen from St. Nicholas and the outlook and the potential that you see?
Absolutely. This is incredible. The growth that we're experiencing in this diocese is absolutely incredible. Every church has grown through the pandemic. This is a silver lining of the pandemic. Every church has grown. You have too. I mean, so many faces that I hadn't seen last time I was here. So this is a silver lining, something positive, unintended positiveness coming out of the pandemic. We even started a brand new mission last January in Concord, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Charlotte. There are already over 120 people. Last August, I went there, baptized 6 people, chrismated 2 people, and ordained a priest for them. the former priest, who was a retired priest, but I asked him to take care of it until we ordained a priest, said, I have 12 more people for baptism. I said, you can do that at another day. I don't want to hog all the baptisms. So they keep growing. St. Nicholas here keeps growing. And that's why you're going to need to build a new church. This is a good problem to have. Father Timothy in California, his church has grown as well. And he's building a brand new church in the midst of all of these problems. Short supplies and labor shortage and so on. But by the will of God, he's almost done, right?
And the pandemic has helped us.
Yeah, we've grown too.
Because we've moved at a pace to remain debt-free with no loan.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I would start out and I can relate with your background very well because I'm also in the lifetime again. You were also a manager and you managed people. How far away the performance review process is from any biblical perspectives, and what can we do to realign it with biblical perspectives?
The management, you mean? Management of people?
Performance review as in done in the high-tech world that you and I served for many years. It is very far away from any biblical perspectives, and that affects the individuals, their families, communities, the whole society. So what do you think that can be done to bring that process in a better alignment with biblical perspectives?
Okay. Can you repeat what he said? I didn't catch everything.
He was asking, it seems like, you mentioned performance reviews, right?
In the corporate world.
In the corporate
The
world.
bishop was a manager, like I was an executive myself.
Mhm.
So he had to evaluate the performance of people.
So evaluating performance in the corporate world being very different than, and management in general too, being very different than what's biblical. For example, Christ as a servant leader is becoming increasingly rare, where in the corporate world people thrive by
self-serving.
Yes. Okay. Basically, it's almost totally different here. In corporations, when you're a manager and somebody doesn't perform, what do you say to them? Ship up or ship out. That's it. You kick them out if they don't perform. But you can't do that in the church. That's not what the church is about. You can't kick someone out. The church is a hospital, as St. John Chrysostom has said. It's a hospital for the sick. And how many of us are sick? All of us, to various degrees. All of us are sick to various degrees, and we can't kick anyone out. So, by positive reinforcement, sometimes the carrot approach works, sometimes the stick approach works, right? It depends on the person. But most of the time, the carrot approach works. And you need to keep encouraging people. What I usually do, I find the smallest positive thing, and I praise it and magnify it to a great deal to get someone to respond. If that doesn't work, we start to use a little bit of the stick approach.
I think Alex was asking if there's any advice you might give to somebody who's managing people in the outside world, how to do so and be more biblical about it, so you're not. So
I see.
How do you make it less of a contrast by bringing in Orthodox faith and Orthodox principles into that real world setting where you are now in charge of people's lives, and how you deal with them is going to affect them and their lives and their children or husbands or whatever the case might be. And is there a way to make that less of a contrast where it's like, well, I step out of my Orthodox setting and now I'm in the corporate world and I'm just going to be cutthroat? How do you still do your job as a manager, but maybe not turn back on Orthodox principles?
I think the same thing can work, but to a certain extent in corporate America. If the person does not respond to the encouragement, no matter what you do, no matter how patient you are, for how long, then at the end, you have to let them go. Otherwise, you're going to be let go. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to reflect on your performance. So you do the most you can with encouragement. The most you can. You know, sometimes you give a reward to something small, even in the corporate world, so that the person may be motivated to increase that little accomplishment into a bigger accomplishment. Sometimes the rewards may not be deserved, but hopefully it'll motivate. That's what I think we can do. But at the end, if you try everything for a long period of time and it still doesn't work, maybe that person is not working out in this department. Let's maybe transfer him to this department. And that works with all of us. Sometimes we're not a good fit in this area, but we are a good fit in this area. It depends on the intention of the person. And also to add to that, let's not forget forgiveness. We all make mistakes, right? Whatever the mistake is, we all make mistakes, and we should all repent, and we should all forgive each other. And we get restored to sacramental life after making a mistake. If we don't accept that, we have to look at what Christ said when they were about to stone that woman. He said to them, whoever is without sin, let him cast the first stone, right? So we need not forget forgiveness. Forgiveness is very powerful. It gives a second chance to the person to recover. And not a single one of us who has not made mistakes. Not a single one of us. And that's why we have confessions, we have, even if we fall out of grace with the church, there is still confession and restoration to sacramental life. That's a foundation of the Orthodox Church. Without forgiveness, guess how many of us would be in the church, right? None. Zero. If we steal this useless cup, it's a sin equivalent to the biggest sin. All sins are equal. We can't say, well, I only stole this cup. He did much worse. They're all equal. All sins are equal, no matter how small they are. But the recovery from the sin might not be equal. It might take more effort to recover from a sin than another sin. So all sins are equal. If we commit the smallest sin, is equivalent to the biggest sin. But recovering from it is the key. We may need more help to recover from certain sins than other sins. But nevertheless, we all sin and we all need to recover from those sins. Sins are becoming more prevalent now. and easier to do. Much easier. And they can be done in the privacy of our home. Nobody is going to know. But God knows. And we need to recover. If we can't do it on our own, we need to get help. That's why each parish has at least one priest. Some parishes have more than one priest. They might have deacons as well. But each parish at least has one priest to help us recover from our sins. Is the priest sinless? Absolutely not. Is the bishop sinless? Yes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Even the bishop is sinful. Even the bishop goes to confession. So we're all sinful. And that should humble all of us. No matter what level education we have, or no matter what status we have achieved, no matter how much money we have, how little money we have, we're all sinful. And it all starts at home. That's why, again, St. John Chrysostom said, the home is the little church. It all starts and ends at home. We don't come to church long enough for the church to have the prevalent, the top level of help. Most churches, most people come to church on Sunday, that's it. One time, when I was a priest, a mother came to me and she said, "I'm so disappointed in you, Father." And I said, "Why? What did I do?" She said, "You're not raising my children." I said, "That's your job. I see your children half an hour on Sunday. It's your job to raise your children." She said, No, it's your job. I said, "If you bring them to church every day, I will raise them. But I see them half an hour a week. So it is your job to raise them."
So I was wondering if you had any advice or comment for those of us who work in the corporate or academic world. If we start seeing more pressure to affirm certain things that we may not be able to affirm as Orthodox, to sign compliance forms, agreeing to some, questionable things. Just what is your advice in that situation?
Well, I'm going to answer in a general way. With respect to anything that compromises our faith. That should never happen. Nothing should compromise our faith. You need to set it up at work in a way that it does not compromise your faith. And if you are forced, you might need to look for another job. You know, a job is only there for as long as you are there, right? But the faith is forever. The church is forever. We cannot compromise our faith. I know this is a very difficult statement, I know. But Christianity, Orthodoxy is not easy. It's probably one of the most difficult religions because you have to fast, you have to do sacraments, you have to prepare for Great Lent, for Pascha. The church is very demanding relative to our world right now. Very demanding. It's not easy to be an Orthodox Christian. That's why Orthodoxy is not the only religion in the US, right? Because it's very difficult. It grows, but relatively speaking, at a small rate. So we have to make a choice. Do we compromise our faith and support this, that, and the other? or leave it all and stay with our faith. I told you that I ran away from God for 12 years. When He called me to leave engineering and go to seminary. For 12 years, I rejected the call. I said, what? God, you want me to leave a 6-figure salary and bossing other engineers around to be what? A priest? Forget it, that's not for me. But it developed over time to say, well, okay, if it's God's will, I'll do it. But in the background, I was thinking, there is no way to know God's will. So I'm safe. And boy, was I wrong. So when I found out that this is God's will, for sure, I left engineering. And that's not easy. That's really difficult. It's not for everyone. God is not going to call everyone to become a priest. He might call people to become other ways, in other ways helping the church. You know, every church has one priest, 200, 300, 400, 500 parishioners. Not everyone is going to become a priest. But we have to make the hard choices. It might affect your lifestyle. But look at what happened to the apostles. They were all killed except for one. They were crucified. They were shipwrecked. I know this is extremely difficult. But we have to choose God over the world. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Coming here seems like a bunch of those kind of calling events. My wife and I were going to move to North Carolina near Charlotte, and in the middle of the night she saw a video about gardening. The gardener was actually connected to this garden right here, and she had a job as a ballet instructor lined up, and now here we are. And it's just been one event after another. And I personally, I'm a contractor. I can do electrical, plumbing, all these other things. Very lucrative, but the passions I've had and the thing, I don't know. I guess my question is how do we know what that calling is? Is it something that's pulling us forward? How can I, newly into this faith, really know? I don't have that wisdom or that discernment to really differentiate. So how would I guess, know what that calling is and if it's from God or not?
I don't know if Father Paul has told you, every church has a direct line to God with a red phone. You call God. No, I'm just kidding. It's not true. I'm just kidding. That's not true. But the way to discern God's will is to stay in touch with spiritual father. Usually, the spiritual father of a parish is the parish priest. To stay in touch with him, to talk with him often, and to tell him about your thoughts, your feelings of what's going on in your life. And then together, because he has gone to seminary, and he has been a priest for a while, so he has more insight on what is going on God's will. So if you stay connected with him, you talk with him, and you give it time, you will know God's will. Nobody's going to call you on a red phone and say, God said, this is my will. There's no silver bullet. You've got to stay connected with your spiritual father. That's the only way. There's no other way.
Any advice you'd have for us as men to help with the younger men or teenager young men in our church, how to be an influence? Any advice on that?
Absolutely. I think one of the major influential ways is to learn more about the faith and live the faith and be Christ's with a small c.
Thanks, sir.
Not only to the younger men, but to the world. When we are implementing Christ's ways in our life, people will notice. And through, if you have the chance, through direct guidance under the leadership of the parish priest. Direct guidance to the younger men. It is very easy nowadays to move in so many directions other than the real true direction. And the other directions are easy and more fun. You know, they asked Metropolitan Bashir, who was before Metropolitan Philip, that he was asked, why do people sin? And he said, he had a very deep voice, well, because sin is sweet. It is true. Sin is sweet, but it is away from God. It's easy, it's more fun. So it's easy to divert from the right path. And by living our way, our life according to Christ as much as we can, and continuing to improve as much as we can under the direction of the parish priest, then that will influence the younger generation. We started a program in Amen about a year ago, wasn't it, Michael?
Yeah.
About guidance.
Yeah.
We need in every parish to have a group that are selected by the priest to guide the younger generation under the leadership of the priest. Because the priest needs to go home sometimes, needs to go to his family. So under his guidance, he can help the younger generation. So hopefully you will implement that here. To guide them, to have programs, to have Bible study, to have all of these things to guide the younger generation. There is no silver bullet. You can't flip a switch and all of that will be done. It takes a lot of work, a lot of perseverance over a long period of time. And all of that can be destroyed overnight. Building is very difficult. Destroying is very easy. I was in Memphis 3-4 years ago. The church in Memphis built a new hall. And the priest said, I was watching them destroy the old building, and it took them 45 minutes to destroy the old building. And for the past year and a half, we've been building this new hall. And when I spoke to the people, I said, have you noticed what he just said? It took 45 minutes to destroy and a year and a half to build. And that is true with everything. All it takes is one person to start the destruction process. And then it'll happen very quickly. So you have to recognize it and stop it immediately. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you everyone. O Heavenly King, Comforter of the Spirit of Truth, who art in all places and fillest all things, treasury of good things and giver of life, come and abide in us and cleanse us from every stain and save our souls, O gracious Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you everyone.
I tremble for the fearful day of judgment, but trusting the compassion of thy mercy, I shout to thee like David, have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy great mercy. mercy.